All right, looking ahead to the schedule, the Cats now prepare for their second matchup against Vandy this season. A couple of weeks ago, they beat the Commodores at Rupp by a score of 71-62 behind a 17-point effort from Tyrese Maxey and another big game from Nick Richards. Now, Vandy did give Kentucky a lot of problems that night, taking a lead into halftime. Before the second half, the Cats went on a run to take the lead. Richards spent most of the first half on the bench with foul trouble. Here's what assistant coach Joel Justice had to say about the rematch today.
I think you've seen how they played in Rupp Arena. I think how you saw them play against LSU. They've got the ability to space the floor. They've got great guard play, in Saban Lee and Scottie Pippen Jr. that can, get by your initial line of defense, which they did against us here a little bit. When they get paint touches, you have to collapse, and that leaves shooters open.
By the way, I mean, he mentioned it there, but Vandy's the team that handed LSU its first conference loss. I mean, they beat them like 99-90. They scored a ton of points. So this is a team that is starting to feel itself come into its own a little bit more. And Vandy's always a tough place to play, too.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the atmosphere in the arena more so than the team. I just want to see some consistency, especially like Nick Richards. Come on, EJ, get playing, get moving, and keep Emmanuel Quigley shooting. I mean, he's on fire.
He's been great, and he's been driving a lot and hitting that little floater like crazy, which has been fun to watch.
But no one does it like Tyrese Maxey and his flip under the basket. That's amazing.
Pretty good. All right, turning to Washington politics. Things are getting back to normal following last week's end to the presidential impeachment saga. Of course, Kentucky Republican Mitch McConnell was at the center of the action as Senate Majority Leader. He drew both praise and condemnation following President Trump's acquittal. Trump singled out McConnell during his post-acquittal speech, and conservative commentators applauded the senator's ability to keep his party in lockstep during the trial. But there were complaints about McConnell as well, of course. Protesters showed up outside the Capitol shouting Moscow Mitch and shame. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi called McConnell's actions cowardly, but his re-election campaign is touting it as a victory as we enter primary season. And Kevin, that's the one thing you can be sure of is Mitch McConnell has like zero personality, zero charisma, but behind closed doors, he keeps his people together.
Well, he does a really good job with that poker face and keeping everything behind closed doors.
I call it a turtle face, but you can call it poker if you want.
We'll give credit where credit is due, but I'd rather hear Trump praise him about the opioid money that we got here locally or the money for UK ag school that we got here locally. Those are the things we should be talking about. Impeachment needs to go on and move away.
Trump would never call something like that out, though. Come on now.
But I will.
It serves him no purpose.
Those are the good things we should be talking about as a country.
All right, in Frankfurt now, leaders of public universities around the state are weighing in on Governor Beshear's proposed budget. Appearing before a House subcommittee last week, the educators expressed appreciation that the governor called for a funding increase for higher education. But they say the rising costs of Kentucky's pension system is what's really breaking the budget. Leaders from Kentucky State and Murray State were among those on hand to testify that the percentage of payroll assigned to covering the pension cost is out of hand and unsustainable in the long term. And Kevin, that may be true, but we got to figure out a way to fund it.
Well, education and pension costs, here we are again, once again in this budget coming up for the state. It has to be fixed. And how do we encourage kids to go to college if we keep raising the costs? And all this will do is raise the costs for tuition going down the road. And UK hadn't been at the table yet.
I've got an idea for you, Kevin, on how we can control those costs.
Are you
ready to hear it? Costs of college have forced many young people to consider alternative means of funding their education. Student loan debt in the U.S. has just reached another all-time high, an increase of 116% in 10 years. So some are choosing sugar daddies over borrowing, finding opportunities at the world's largest sugar dating site called Seeking Arrangements. Now, UK is in the top 50 of sugar baby schools, coming in at number 44. U of L ranks 129, and KCTCS was number 5 among community colleges at one point.
We have 4.5 million sugar babies on our site who are students. I think it's understood that if you come to our site, the men that you're going to meet have money. And if you are in a relationship with somebody who is generous and successful, there will be benefits for you. We have girls who are getting mansions and yachts and handbags worth $5,000. The majority of them who are successful sugar daters who have sugar daddies are avoiding student debt and getting their living expenses paid for. They're having an elevated college experience because of the men they're meeting on our site.
Sugar dating is legal. You must be 18 years or older. The relationship may be different for many giving it a try, but the folks at Seeking Arrangement say it's consensual and mutually beneficial. Kevin, your thoughts on paying for your student loans by perhaps entertaining an older, wealthy gentleman?
Well, I wouldn't want to do that, but I'll give him an A for creativity, an A for effort, but an F for everything else to go along with that. It's just, I would never want to put, if I had a daughter in that situation, and I hate to think that a young lady feels like they have to do that in order to go to school, but apparently there's people out there doing it, given the numbers we presented tonight.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. My husband would call me his sugar mama. So,
Well, there you go.
All right. Now in Hay, Kentucky, in case you missed it, a state lawmaker is taking steps toward impeaching a Kenton County judge. A resolution filed in the legislature last Friday asks a committee to decide if there's enough evidence to remove family court judge Dawn Gentry, who's been accused of using sex, campaign contributions, and retaliation against co-workers. Meanwhile, a Jefferson County family court judge is Kentucky's first Latina on the bench. Ellie Kerstetter was recently sworn in after practicing law for 20 years. And the State Court of Appeals has upheld a lower court's ruling allowing Kentucky jailers to take booking fees and daily charges from inmates and keep the money, even if that person is found not guilty. Coming up next on Hey Kentucky, last week we brought you part one of my interview with former Wildcat Logan Stenberg. Tonight the conversation continues with the former UK offensive lineman talking about his upbringing and what led him to the verge of an NFL career. Stay with us.